This is your WLAK Daily News Roundup for Lake Air, 107.5 FM and 1260 AM in Amory.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Wisconsin's leading business group is asking the Wisconsin Supreme Court to overturn Governor Evers' line-item veto last summer to let school districts increase spending for each of the next 400 years. Lawyers for Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce argue Evers' maneuver forces local property taxpayers to pay more for schools without having any say. PFAS pollution could be an issue in this year's elections. Marquette University political scientist Amber Wachowski tells Wisconsin Eye that people who read more news are likely to be the most concerned.
One of the predictors of your concern over PFAS is, are you paying attention to current affairs and political issues? Republican
lawmakers and Governor Evers can't agree if the Department of Natural Resources or local communities should administer PFAS cleanup. David Casey is Wisconsin's new acting revenue secretary. Casey will take over for Peter Barca in 2 weeks. Barca retired earlier this month. Casey has more than 30 years' experience working with state tax agencies. He recently served as deputy revenue secretary. He's been working as an expert in tax compliance and fraud for SAS Institute in North Carolina. Donald Trump's Wisconsin campaign director in 2020 will lead the state Republican Party this election year. Andrew Iverson will serve as executive director of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. He takes over for Mark Jefferson, who left in February to lead the Wisconsin Tavern League. In 2020, Iverson pushed unfounded allegations of widespread voter fraud. 25 states cap out-of-pocket costs for insulin, but not Wisconsin.
The high cost of the actual drug combined with the high cost of supplies has really made this crisis something that definitely kills people.
Catherine Poe is a policy researcher. A bill in the Wisconsin legislature would cap insulin copays at $35 a month for workers on commercial health insurance. 2 scenic highways in Wisconsin are now part of the state's Rustic Roads program. The first stretch covers almost 10 miles near the American Birkebeiner Trail in northwest Wisconsin. The other new route crosses Honey Creek near East Troy and passes what was once a one-room schoolhouse. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly. Union members held a rally outside the Community Addiction Recovery Enterprise in Carlton following its announced closure last month. According to a Northern News Now report, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz announced the state-run facility would close this year amid budget concerns. The care facility is the only state-run all-female chemical dependency and mental health recovery facility in the state. Supporters of the facility say it's a vital resource, and both patients and employees will have a difficult time relocating. The Carlton School Board has voted to implement a 4-day school week going forward. The school board held a public meeting on Monday and decided the change would attract more students and ease the operational costs of the school. Under the proposal, each of the 4 school days would be 25 minutes longer, and the school would remain open on Friday for free breakfast and lunch. The school will also provide childcare options on Fridays. The board still must submit its application to the Department of Education. The Minnesota Department of Transportation has shared a not-so-optimistic update for the 40th Avenue West Bridge over I-35 in Duluth. According to a Fox 21 report, the bridge was damaged last week by a truck carrying a load that was too high. The truck reportedly struck the bridge at around 8:30 a.m. last Thursday, and DOT officials now say the bridge will be closed for the foreseeable future due to the damage. Officials are bringing in a Twin Cities company to examine the full range of damage to begin making repair plans. The Superior Hiking Association has announced 2 popular trails will be closed over the summer for renewal projects. According to a Facebook post, the Split Rock River Loop and Bean and Bear Lakes Loop will both be closed to protect trail users and workers as the organization looks to maintain the worn-down trails. The Bean and Bear Lakes Loop will close on May 15th, covering about 2.2 miles of the trail. The eastern side of the Split Rock River Loop will be closed on September 1st, covering just shy of 2 miles. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation is reminding residents that it's National Work Zone Awareness Week. According to the DOT, there were over 2,000 crashes in Wisconsin work zones last year. As the weather begins to warm up enough for road construction projects to resume, state officials are reminding drivers to use extra caution when driving through a work zone and follow all applicable laws, namely changes in the speed limit. Drivers should be extra focused when driving through a construction zone. A new housing development has officially broken ground in Duluth. According to a Northern News Now report, the Lakeview apartment building will contain hundreds of housing units across 15 stories in downtown Duluth, addressing a major need for more available housing in the area. The apartment complex reportedly plans to open in the fall of 2025 with 210 units. Officials also say the $87 million project will include commercial space on the ground floor for things like restaurants and retail stores. A public meeting will be held this month on the indigenous human remains that were found at a construction site for the Twin Ports Interchange project. According to a Fox 21 report, the remains were found over a year ago and forced a complete halt in construction work on that section of the project. The meeting will be held at Clyde Iron in Duluth on April 29th at 6 p.m. The Minnesota Indian Affairs Council and the Minnesota Department of Transportation will release more information about the halted project. A Sunday night fire on Decker Road left 2 Duluth residents displaced. According to the Duluth Fire Department, crews responded to the fire on the 4000 block of Decker Road at around 9:15 on Sunday night. They arrived to find a small garage fully engulfed in flames before a power line broke. Minnesota Power was able to take the power out of the downed line, and crews were able to extinguish the fire. The garage and the home suffered about $65,000 of damage, and the cause of the fire is under investigation. And that's what you need to know. For WLAK News, I'm James Kelly.
The Brewers bow to the Padres. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Milwaukee had a 3-1 lead over San Diego. Then came an ugly 5th inning. The Padres hitting half a dozen singles, driving in 6 runs. They went on to win 7-3 at American Family Field. Brewers catcher William Contreras let a Joe Ross pitch get past him. Manager Pat Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. William's been so good, and the ball was not exactly a strike, but I think the ball got away from Joe and kind of took off when a guy's throwing 95 miles an hour sometimes and slider backs up or doesn't do what you think it's doing. There's a lapse there for a second, but William catches that ball most of the time. It could happen to any catcher on that pitch in the game.
The series continues tonight. NFL, Packers players reporting to Green Bay for a week of meetings and physicals. NBA, the Bucks are 1-4 so far this season against the Pacers. The good news is head coach Doc Rivers has until Sunday to prepare.
Yeah, we get to practice. Yeah, and Indiana has had our number all year, right? So, perfect opponent. Listen, we got to play somebody, and they're tough. They've played great against us. They have probably great confidence against us. We'll have great focus because we're going to have to.
That's Bucks head coach Doc Rivers. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. In addition to rock star, Alex Van Halen is adding author to his resume. The famous brother of an even more famous brother, Eddie Van Halen, has written a book chronicling the story of Van Halen. It will follow the family's journey from immigrants through their rise to rock and roll fame. Van Halen's book is called Brothers and will be available October 22 of this year. Speaking of the brothers Van, despite some prying by Howard Stern, Hart's sisters Ann and Nancy Wilson say nothing ever happened between the two of them and Eddie and Alex Van Halen, other than some general partying. Nancy Wilson says it was like a circus being around the two brothers, describing their dynamic as 1 minute it was fisticuffs and the next it was hugging and loving, adding that in the 80s it was all imbibery and chicanery. That sounds like a fun era to be a rock star in, much different than the 60s when it was mostly tomfoolery and monkey business. Actress Jessica Chastain says a lot of couples have named their daughters after her character in the Christopher Nolan film Interstellar. Chastain's character was named Murph Cooper. She played a NASA scientist who traveled through a wormhole with her father, Joseph Cooper, played by Matthew McConaughey, as they tried to save the Earth. Chastain says people come up to her all the time and say they named their daughter Murph. Cute name and much more desirable than all the couples that named their daughters Nurse Ratched 40 years ago. The Bachelors are turning on each other. Former Bachelor contestant Nick Viles says there might be more to the story regarding the quick divorce between Golden Bachelor couple Jerry Turner and Teresa Nist. Viles hinted that Jerry Turner might not be as golden as we think. Interesting. Especially coming from a guy who tried to find TV love 3 times on various Bachelor and Bachelor spin-offs before finally marrying someone he met off-air who was almost 20 years younger. Judge much, Nick? It's another win for A24 as the film Civil War took the top slot in the weekend box office. It was the highest grossing opening weekend ever for the studio. It was also the most lucrative opening for an R-rated film this year. Civil War was the only new theatrical release last weekend. Godzilla x Kong took second place after 2 weeks at number 1. Variety reports that overall the box office is roughly 16% behind the same point in 2023 and 31% down from pre-pandemic days. If you're looking for something new to watch, here's a new Schwabmendation. Check out Leroy, Texas, a quirky caper film where a down-and-out sad sack is mistakenly given money to kill someone. Steve Zahn plays a scene-stealing PI. The film is a bit dark, but also really funny at times, and overall, a crackling good watch. For more showbiz fun, tune into Nightlight with me, Pete Schwaba, weeknights from 7 to 9 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Thunderstorms with heavy rain likely this afternoon, tonight into tomorrow. We could get an inch to an inch and a half or more of rain by the time everything winds down on Wednesday. It's also going to be colder and very windy today. Our high 56 wind out of the east, gusting to between 40 and 50 here through today. I'm meteorologist Sean Cable. Temperature now 49.
That's your WLAK Daily News Roundup from Civic Media. Subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you find your podcasts. Find more news at lakeair.radio.